I'll cut them some slack, the Democratic side, in that they assumed office, the Democratic administration, in January 2021 at the height of inflation. Prices were their highest. Any administration would have had a tough time at that. Also, parties around the world are losing in countries like Great Britain, throughout Europe and Africa, for some of these same reasons. That's no excuse for them losing, but certainly Biden should have left the race, and if Kamala Harris was to be the nominee, she should have gone through a primary process and run it on her own. I think that's the real lesson. Primaries make candidates stronger.
Welcome to the Debriefs, where we talk to Washington Examiner's editors about the stories they're covering this week and where they're going. We're here with David Mark, magazine editor. David, Democrats have a lot of damage control to do after this election. Specifically, we're talking about this blue wall today. And Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Minnesota, where they normally all vote blue, completely went red.
Yeah, this was the firewall that Democrats were counting on for Kamala Harris to beat Donald Trump. They lost in all those three states, as they did back in 2016. They also gave away all the gains that Joe Biden won in 2020 against Trump, including Arizona and North Carolina. So pretty rough night on that front.
And we have a clip from CNN where Jake Tapper is asking where Kamala Harris was leading over Biden during the election.
Are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
By 3% or more.
That is a pretty stark scene for them. They quickly got out of that. How crazy is that? How much do Democrats have to learn from this moment?
Yeah, that graphics pretty much speaks for itself. It basically shows the entire country, or close to it, went right. I think as of now, 48 states voted more to the right than they did back in 2020. The votes are still being added up. Basically, Democrats have a lot of soul searching to do. You're getting all kinds of explanations, some excuses saying it was quote unquote disinformation by Republicans, conservatives, whatever that means. Bernie Sanders came out with a statement basically excoriating Democrats for not going hard left enough. And there's some people in the party who are going to believe that. I think the more level-headed members will take a look at it more rationally and say, why are we turning people off? Is the wokeness? Is it some of the policies? It's probably some combination thereof, but they've got some real hard soul searching to do.
It was definitely an underwhelming performance for Kamala Harris, to say the least. Do you think the question now, we actually spoke with some students at Howard University during her concession speech, and they were blaming it on Biden not dropping out soon enough. Do you think that's going to be the question people ask, is should he drop out soon enough, or should it have been a different candidate entirely?
Both. He was pretty selfish by staying in the race as long as he did. He only gave Kamala Harris, his chosen successor, 3 months plus to run. I'm not sure any other candidate would have made the difference. I'm still looking at the stats and everything, but the more I look at this, some of it was just the macro environment. I'll cut them some slack, the Democratic side, in that they assumed office, the Democratic administration, in January 2021 at the height of inflation. Prices were their highest. Any administration would have had a tough time at that. Also, parties around the world are losing in countries like Great Britain, throughout Europe and Africa, for some of these same reasons. That's no excuse for them losing, but certainly Biden should have left the race, and if Kamala Harris was to be the nominee, she should have gone through a primary process and run it on her own. I think that's the real lesson. Primaries make candidates stronger.
Yep. So we were wondering if she had won, if primaries would be over for Democrats. Do the Democrats know better than voters do? And it turns out the voters do know better.
Well, I think one more thing, the Democrats kind of tried to rig the primary for it. Going back to the Biden days, they made South Carolina the first primary, which really gets in the weed, but it was basically a way to rig it.
Right, that was a huge thing against Dean Phillips, too.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to have a primary, you should just leave it open, let people vote how they want. Or just say, this isn't a small d democratic process. Us insiders know better, and we're going to choose it. And maybe there's some merit to that.
Yeah. Well, it'll definitely leave a lot of questions leading up after this.
Be plenty more to discuss in the coming weeks.
Well, David Mark, thank you so much. Managing editor for the Washington Examiner magazine. I'm Amy DeLaura, and for more straight news, conservative views, and exclusive interviews, head to washingtonexaminer.com.